We're really excited as we get into our final preparations for the 2017 Row by Row program that will be starting June 21st. So if you remember, if you participated from previous years, each store location that participates in Row by Row, including all 4 of the Meissner's locations, have a free pattern for a 36.5-inch row that you can combine with other rows on your travels to quilt shops to create your own quilt piece. So here's a little preview of the Roseville store's row. So this year's theme is On the Go, and it features a number of different little vehicles in here. Now this is just a mock-up, so the Row by Row official fabrics are just a little bit different. So I want to give you a couple of tips on how to finish off the applique shapes that are going to be part of this particular row. The instructions for your Roseville row are going to include the directive to applique using your favorite method. That could be for a wall hanging, simply fuse it and let it go. It could be a blanket stitch, a satin stitch, or a decorative stitch. For my sample, I'm going to use a single stitch blanket stitch, and I'm going to stitch it on my limited edition 350 cotton and steel I Love Sewing edition machine. So the single blanket stitch makes it easy to go around curves and complex items because there's not a lot of movement of the stitch from side to side or forward and back that you really have to pay attention to. I like to use an open toe embroidery foot, so I have a lot of visibility here. Now by moving my needle position to the far right, the straight stitch portion of the blanket stitch is going to ride just inside the edge of the toe of the presser foot and in the ditch between the applique fabric and the background fabric. The bite of the stitch, our goal is to make it perpendicular to our applique shape. So where I'm going to pivot will be during the straight stitch portion of the stitch formation. So my needle is going to come forward, take a swing to the side, forward, swing to the side, and I'm going to want to pivot during that straight stitch portion of the stitch formation. If you pivot when the needle is in the left-hand side of the swing, you're going to get a little V instead of a nice straight stitch to your blanket stitch. For soft curves, you can just gently turn your fabric as you go. The sharper the curve, you're going to want to lift that presser foot just a little bit to pivot. I like to use a fabric that coordinates, or a thread that coordinates with my background fabric, but that thread choice is totally up to you. I like the way that the thread disappears down in the ditch between the applique and the background fabric when I use a color that coordinates with the background. But again, that choice is yours. Now a trick for starting and stopping your blanket stitch applique, when you get to the end, and let's pretend that we're at the very end of our applique, we've gone all the way around, I will choose a straight stitch. Again, move my needle to the far right needle position so that it's right here in the ditch when the stitch forms. Shorten my stitch length down to about a 0.5. Take a few stitches forward, right in the ditch, between the applique shape and the background fabric. Reverse. And it's making teeny, teeny, teeny securing stitches. And then cut my threads and I'm done. So we look forward to having you participate in our Row by Row series. And again, you can pick up a strip set instructions at each of our 4 locations starting on June 21st.